Welcome, everybody, to this episode of Grassroots Advocacy. It's a real pleasure to be here with you. During our previous episodes, we started to talk about advocacy at the national level. And one of the things we really need to talk about when we talk about advocacy at the national level is really talking about the ability of each of us to shape the future of our country by doing a very simple thing, and that is casting your vote. As an American citizen, it is a right and a privilege and a responsibility to cast your vote in the various electoral processes. So in our episode today, we are going to spend some time talking about understanding the election process. Now, to kind of put that into some context, we're in our midterm elections, and the Democrats and the Republicans alike have been spending a lot of time talking about their respective waves. The Democrats and the Republicans, the blue wave and the red wave, and how things are going to be reshaped. Well, I wanted to have an opportunity to kind of do a review, if you will, a Civics 101, you might say, of the electoral process. First, I'd like to make the point that in the United States Constitution, under Article 1, that defines the Congress. The Congress is divided into two houses, the House of Representatives and the United States Senate. And you heard me mention earlier that we're in a midterm cycle. Well, you might be curious to know what that means. And what that means is this. We are between two presidential elections. We recently elected President Donald J. Trump, and in 2020, we will have the opportunity to either retain President Trump, depending upon his performance, or to select a new president. Well, in between 2016 and 2020, we have what's referred to as a midterm election, and this is an opportunity for us to elect people to the House and to the Senate. It's also an opportunity for us to vote on various ballot measures. Those are happening particularly at the state levels. So in the House of Representatives, there are 435 representatives in the House. There are 100 representatives in the United States Senate. So one of the things for us to think about is that we could generally be referred to as a two-party system. We have the Democrats and we have the Republicans. But to be fair and to be more accurate, there are actually a number of political parties that are recognized in the United States. So there are, of course, the Democrats and the Republicans. There are independents. There are two folks in the Senate who serve as independent Oh my gosh, I'm having a senior moment and I'm tongue-tied. What happened to the polygrip? So as I was saying, there are two independent folks who sit in the Senate, United States Senate. Then there are libertarians, and there is the Green Party. For example, you may remember that in the last electoral cycle, presidential cycle, a lady named Jill Stein was running as a representative of the Green Party. So there are actually more than two parties, but when you get right down to it, at least currently, when you look at our elected officials in Washington, D.C. and Congress, they are either Democrat or they are Republican. So the next thing that I wanted to touch base on is really looking at the voting process. So in a number of states, when you went to fill out to get your driver's license, you were also simultaneously registered to vote. Another way that you can register to vote is by going to your particular state's Secretary of State website and looking for voter registration there. A third way that you can get registered to vote is by going to your county seat and going to the registrar's office, I believe it is. It may be different in your county, so please check it out. But those are the 3 ways that you can go and you can get registered to vote. Now, the terms of voter registration differ from state to state, but generally speaking, if you're an American citizen over the age of 18, have not been convicted of a felony, or as a result of a conviction of a felony, lost your ability to vote, if you have a driver's license or some form of valid ID, those are some of the basic kinds of selection criteria to be eligible to vote. Now, we are about roughly a month or so away from the general elections for the midterms. And so one of the things that you will want to do is, if you're not already registered, you'll want to do that right away. The next thing that I'd like to ask you to think about is this. Sometimes it's difficult, especially in the healthcare environment, it's difficult to take time away from your scheduled work to go and cast your vote. If that's true for you, I would encourage you, please, to check out what is required in your state to cast an absentee ballot. And that may be as simple as sending an email to the Secretary of State. It might be more complex. I'm not really sure. I would just want to encourage you to check out your state so that you have the opportunity to vote. It really must be very frustrating if you have to make a choice between exercising your civic responsibility by casting a vote or going to work to care for the wonderful women and men that you serve. So I want to ask you to think about that. Now, earlier in the introduction, I mentioned that the Republicans and the Democrats are both looking to create a wave of change in the midterm elections. And I suppose that it is possible that either wave might happen. I will tell you definitively that that wave won't happen if each of us fails to vote. So to wrap up today's segment, I would like to share with you this quote from President Franklin Delano Roosevelt. President Roosevelt said, "Nobody will ever deprive the American people of the right to vote except the American people themselves. And the only way they could do this is by not voting. So get out and vote." Look forward to seeing you during our next episode.